I never thought I'd find myself in this situation. I mean, when you get married, you hope it's forever, right? My name is Jake, and I was married to a woman named Allison. We were together for almost 10 years, and for the most part, I thought everything was great. But looking back, I can see the signs, the little things that I dismissed at the time. Allison was the kind of woman who thrived on attention. She had this magnetic personality that drew people in, and I loved that about her. But over the past year, she had started to change. She was working late more often, canceling plans at the last minute, and had become increasingly distant. I chalked it up to work stress. She was climbing the corporate ladder at my father's company, and the pressure was on her. I was proud of her, but I guess I didn't realize how much that pressure was affecting her and me. It all came to a head one fateful Thursday evening. I had planned a nice dinner for us at home, complete with her favorite wine. I got off work early, excited to surprise her. When I walked into our house, the first thing I noticed was that it was unusually quiet. I called out for her, but there was no response. I figured she was just busy in the shower or something. But as I moved through the house, I couldn't shake off this gnawing gut feeling that something was off. I went into our bedroom to set the table, and there it was, a crumpled piece of paper sitting on her nightstand. I picked it up, curiosity getting the better of me. It was a note, and as I unfolded it, my heart began to race. It was from someone named Mark, her boss, and it was unmistakable. "Can't wait to see you tonight. You make me feel alive." My stomach dropped as the realization hit me. My wife was cheating on me, with her boss, my father's business partner. I felt like I was in a surreal nightmare. I confronted her as soon as she walked in, paper in hand, and her reaction was almost immediate. She went pale, and for a moment I thought she might faint. "Jake, it's not what it looks like," she stammered, trying to piece together some kind of defense. I couldn't believe how quickly she jumped into damage control mode, her eyes darting around as if she was looking for an escape route. "Not what it looks like. You're literally sleeping with Mark." I shouted, my voice cracking with rage. She tried to deny it, saying it was just a misunderstanding and that I was jumping to conclusions. But I wasn't having any of it. The shock morphed into a white-hot anger as I listened to her twisted logic. She claimed that Mark had been supporting her at work and that it was all innocent. Innocent. There was nothing innocent about a note like that. The emotional impact hit me like a freight train. One moment I was a loving husband, and the next I was a betrayed man standing in the wreckage of my marriage. I could feel the tears stinging my eyes, but I fought them back. I wanted to scream, to throw things, to make her feel as miserable as I did. But I also felt a crushing sadness creeping in, the kind that makes you question everything you thought you knew about your partner. In that moment, I realized I had two choices. I could either wallow in my misery or take action. I chose the latter. I wouldn't let her get away with this. I would make her regret the day she ever betrayed me. I had connections through my father's company, and I was determined to make something happen. As I stewed in my anger and disbelief, I started to formulate a plan that would not only take away her affair partner but also leave her with nothing. Little did I know, the journey I was about to embark on would lead to a deeper understanding of myself and what I truly valued. But first, I had to get through the next few days, which would test my resolve and my sanity like never before. The next few days were a blur. I was caught in a whirlwind of emotions, swinging between anger, betrayal, and a strange sense of determination. I kept replaying that moment over and over again in my head, her frantic excuses echoing in my ears. Each time I thought about it, the fire inside me grew hotter. I was done being the victim in my own life. I remember sitting on the couch, staring blankly at the wall, trying to figure out what my next move would be. I needed a plan that would ensure Allison would pay for what she did. I had to find a way to strike back, not just to make her regret her choices, but to reclaim my own power in this twisted scenario. I couldn't let the betrayal define me. I had to own it and turn it into something that would work in my favor. I thought about my father's company, the one I had been working at for a few years, slowly making my way up the ranks. My father had spent decades building that business from the ground up, and I was primed to take over one day. But now, with Allison tangled up with Mark, her boss, I realized I could use this situation to my advantage. If I played my cards right, I could secure my position and ensure they both felt the weight of their betrayal. I reached out to a few close colleagues, those I trusted who also saw the writing on the wall. I told them that I was considering stepping up my involvement in the company, pushing for a more impactful role. I wanted to make it clear that I was ready to take charge. They were supportive and encouraged me to pursue that goal, giving me the confidence boost I desperately needed. Armed with this newfound resolve, I decided it was time to confront Mark. I needed to establish dominance, show him that I wasn't the kind of guy who would just sit back and let this happen without consequences. I figured showing him that I was not only aware of the affair but also willing to take action might rattle him. I set up a meeting under the guise of discussing upcoming company projects, but I had other plans in mind. When I walked into the conference room, I felt a surge of adrenaline. Mark was already there, looking suave as usual, the typical charmer with a self-satisfied grin plastered across his face. I could feel the tension in the air as I slid into the seat opposite him. He was completely unaware of the storm brewing within me. "Jake, glad you could make it. I was just briefing the team on the new partnership. Exciting times ahead, right?" He said, his voice dripping with false enthusiasm. "Sure, Mark, exciting for some," I replied, letting the words hang in the air. There was a moment of hesitation in his eyes, and I could see him calculating the gravity of my tone. I leaned in, keeping my voice low but firm. "I know about you and Allison. I have the evidence, and I'm not going to let this slide." His expression shifted from shock to anger in an instant. "What are you talking about? This is a ridiculous accusation." "You need to back off," he snapped, but I could see the cracks forming in his confidence. It was like watching a facade crumble right before my eyes. I continued, "You think you can just waltz in and take what's mine? You think I'll let you play house with my wife while I sit idly by? Not a chance. I will make this company my own and you will be out of the picture." I could tell my words had struck a nerve. The color drained from his face, and I knew I had him on the ropes. "You're bluffing," he retorted weakly, but I could tell he was rattled. "Try me," I said, standing up and leaving him speechless. I walked out of that meeting feeling more empowered than I had in days. I was taking charge of my narrative, and it felt damn good. The following days turned into a chess match. I worked tirelessly, focusing on building alliances within the company while simultaneously keeping an eye on Mark and Allison. I watched how they interacted, the way they whispered to each other during meetings, and how they tried to keep their affair under wraps. It was infuriating yet oddly satisfying to know that I was in control of the situation. But with every passing day, the emotional turmoil inside me simmered. I felt a strange mix of anger and sadness whenever I thought about Allison. She had betrayed the trust we built over a decade, and I was still grappling with how to handle the fallout on a personal level. I found myself questioning whether I wanted to confront her again or just cut my losses and move on. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was still deeply in love with the woman I knew before the betrayal, but the woman who stood in my place now was unrecognizable. I realized I had to make a decision. I needed to either confront Allison about the affair again or cut her off completely. The longer I waited, the more I felt like I was simply delaying the inevitable. Deep down, I knew that whatever choice I made would shape the course of my life forever, and that was a heavy burden to carry. After a week of strategizing, I found myself at a crossroads. The anger was still there, simmering beneath the surface, but I was also wrestling with a profound sadness. Every time I thought about Allison, I felt a pang of nostalgia for the life we had built together. I missed the connection we shared, the laughter, and the dreams we once talked about. But then the image of her with Mark would flash in my mind, and the anger would roar back to life. I decided it was time for another confrontation, but this time I wanted it to be different. I didn't want to give her the chance to spin her lies or deflect blame. I wanted straight answers. I needed to hear her admit the truth, and there was a part of me that needed to see her squirm to understand the gravity of her choices. So I set a date for us to talk, just the two of us, in a more private setting. I chose a small cafe we used to visit, a place that held so many memories. I knew it would have an emotional weight, and I hoped it would prompt some honesty from her. I arrived early, my heart racing as I sat at a table in the corner, nursing a coffee and rehearsing what I wanted to say. I was determined to stay calm, to not let her see just how much I was hurting. Allison arrived a few minutes late, her usual bright demeanor dimmed slightly. She didn't seem surprised to see me. In fact, she wore a look of apprehension that hinted she knew what I wanted to discuss. I gestured for her to sit, and as she did, I could see the tension in her body, the way she fidgeted with her hair and avoided eye contact. It was clear this conversation was weighing on her as much as it was on me. Jake, she started, but I cut her off. Let's not play games, Allison. I know about you and Mark. I saw the note and I don't want to hear any of your excuses, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I want the truth. Her expression shifted, a mix of guilt and defiance. I didn't mean for it to happen, Jake. Things have just been difficult between us, she said, her words tumbling out in a rush. I felt so alone and Mark was there for me. Alone? You think I wasn't trying? You think I didn't notice how distant you've become? I shot back. This isn't just about you feeling neglected. You made a choice, Allie, a choice to betray our marriage. Tears pooled in her eyes, and for a fleeting moment I almost felt sympathy. But then I remembered the warmth of our home, the trust we had built, and how she had thrown it all away. I thought we could work on things, she said, desperation creeping into her voice. I thought maybe this was just a phase. A phase. You're having sex with my father's business partner. You think that's just a phase? My voice was rising and I was aware of the stares from nearby tables, but I didn't care. You need to understand how serious this is. You've ruined everything. She reached for my hand, a pleading gesture, but I pulled it away. Don't touch me, I said, my words dripping with disdain. I don't even know who you are anymore. You've betrayed me in the worst way, and for what? A fling with someone who you barely know. It's not just a fling. Mark and I, she started, but I interrupted her again. I don't want to hear it, I said, my patience wearing thin. You need to understand that I won't be the fool in this situation, Allison. You may think you can have your cake and eat it too, but that's not how this works. There was a long silence as we both sat there, emotions swirling in the air. I could see the reality sinking in for her, and part of me felt a twisted sense of satisfaction at the sight. But I also felt something else, a sense of loss. I had loved this woman, and it hurt to see her so broken. I don't want to lose you, Jake, she finally said, her voice trembling. I made a mistake, a huge mistake, but I want to fix this. I'll end things with Mark, I promise. And there it was, the promise I had been waiting to hear. But the words felt hollow. Could I ever truly trust her again? Was I willing to gamble on the possibility of her sincerity when the wounds were still so fresh? I don't know if I can believe you, I said softly. You've shattered my trust in ways I never thought possible. Even if you end things with him, it's going to take more than a few words to mend what's broken. Allison nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll go to counseling, I'll make changes. I just need you to give me a chance. In that moment, I realized how much I wanted to believe her, but the memory of her betrayal loomed large. I had a decision to make, and it wasn't going to be easy. As we sat there in silence, I knew the clock was ticking. I didn't just want revenge. I wanted to make sure I was moving forward in a way that would allow me to reclaim my life. But I also had to consider what it might mean to allow her back in. The emotional journey I was on was still unfolding, and I had to decide if I was strong enough to face the truth of our marriage, or if walking away was the only way to truly heal. The air between us was thick with tension, and I felt like I was suffocating under the weight of the decision hanging over my head. What was I supposed to do? On one hand, I had this image of the woman I loved, the woman I shared my life with, and on the other I had the stark reality of her betrayal. The thought of giving her another chance felt like I was setting myself up for more heartbreak, and yet there was a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, we could salvage something. In that cafe, I could see the person Allison used to be shining through the cracks of her current self. But could I trust that version of her again? I wanted to believe her. Words that she wanted to fix things, that she would do whatever it took, but I had been burned before. Trust, once broken, is a fragile thing to rebuild. I need time to think, I finally said, feeling the weight of those words. I can't just jump into this without processing what's happened. Allison nodded, her face a mix of relief and disappointment. I understand. Just know that I'm committed to making this work. I don't want to lose you, Jake. I left the cafe that day feeling a mix of confusion and heaviness. I wanted to give her a chance, but the specter of Mark loomed large. I'd watched her flirt with danger, and it took everything I had to not spiral into a pit of despair. I needed to focus on myself, on rebuilding my life, on taking over the company, and on ensuring that I wasn't just a victim of circumstance. As the days passed, I poured myself into my work, spending late nights at the office and collaborating with my trusted colleagues. I was on a mission to gather evidence of Mark's incompetence and mismanagement in his role as the head of sales, hoping to reveal a case for his removal. There was something satisfying about being the one in control, about crafting my destiny in response to betrayal. Yet, even as I worked tirelessly, the emotional turmoil remained. I would often catch myself reminiscing about our best times together, those moments when everything felt right, when we laughed together until our sides hurt. But then the image of her with Mark invaded my mind, the betrayal slicing through those memories like a knife. One night while I was working late, I received a call from one of my confidants within the company, Lisa. She was a sharp, ambitious woman who had been with the firm for years and had seen the inner workings of Mark's management style. "Jake, I need to talk to you. It's urgent," she said, her tone serious. I met her in a small conference room away from prying eyes. "What's going on?" I asked, sensing her urgency. "There's a lot of tension between Mark and the sales team, and I have a feeling it's about to blow up. I overheard him talking to someone about some shady deals he's been making. I think it might be worth investigating," she said, her eyes narrowing. That piqued my interest. "Shady deals? What are you talking about?" "I can't share all the details right now, but I think you should dig deeper. I can help you gather information. If we can expose him, it could be the leverage you need to take control of the company," she explained. Suddenly, the pieces began to fall into place. If Mark was engaging in unethical practices, it could be the perfect way to show my father that he was unfit to run the company, and I could step in as the rightful heir without any lingering doubts. It felt like a golden opportunity had landed in my lap. As we discussed the details, I felt a surge of determination. I wasn't just going to survive this, I was going to thrive. Mark had taken something precious from me, but now I was poised to take something back: my power, my position, and my dignity. Over the next few weeks, Lisa and I worked closely, gathering evidence of Mark's indiscretions. I learned about questionable contracts, late-night meetings with clients that never yielded results, and inflated sales figures. It was astounding how deep the corruption ran, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of vindication as we pieced everything together. But even as I reveled in this newfound sense of purpose, the emotional toll of my marriage weighed heavily on me. I still hadn't fully decided what I wanted from my relationship with Allison. I wanted to believe that she could change, that maybe her promise to end things with Mark was genuine. But every time I saw her, I felt a mixture of love and fury that left me reeling. One evening, I returned home later than usual, the adrenaline from our investigation still coursing through me. Allison was waiting for me, her expression a mix of anxiety and hope. "Jake, can we talk?" she asked hesitantly. "We can," I replied, taking a deep breath. "But I don't know what more there is to say. I'm still processing everything." "I understand, but I want you to know that I'm serious about what I said. I ended things with Mark. I told him it was over. I'm committed to making this work," she said, her eyes pleading for me to believe her. I was silent for a moment, letting the weight of her words sink in. "Is it really over, or is this just another attempt to placate me?" Her eyes widened and she shook her head fervently. "No, it's over, I swear. I made a terrible mistake and I want to fix it. I want us back." I wanted to feel relief, a glimmer of hope, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it was too late. The path ahead seemed murky. I felt torn between wanting to believe her and knowing the reality of her actions. I knew I had to make a choice soon, not just for the sake of our marriage but for my own peace of mind. In the days that followed, I felt the internal struggle intensify. I needed to choose between my heart and my head. I also needed to decide how far I was willing to go to reclaim my life and set my own destiny in motion. I could either work on mending what was broken or pull the plug entirely. Either way, I felt like I was on the brink of something monumental, and I could no longer delay my decision. The days that followed the confrontation with Allison were a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. I was living in limbo, caught between my desire to believe in the love we once shared and the bitter reality of her betrayal. Each day felt like an uphill battle as I grappled with the choice that lay before me. Should I give her another chance or cut my losses and move on for good? I threw myself into my work, burying my head in reports and meetings as I continued to gather evidence against Mark. The thrill of uncovering shady deals and unethical practices provided a distraction from the turmoil in my personal life. Lisa was an invaluable partner in this endeavor, and together we began to formulate a plan to present our findings to my father, who was growing increasingly concerned about the direction the company was heading. One afternoon, as I sat at my desk reviewing the latest documents, I felt my phone vibrate. It was a text from Allison, and my heart raced as I opened it. "Can we talk tonight? I need you to hear me out." A part of me wanted to ignore it, to shut her out and focus on the bigger picture. But another part, the part that remembered the good times, the laughter, and the love we once shared, wanted to give her a chance. I sighed, knowing that this conversation was inevitable. "Fine. 7 o'clock," I replied, my heart pounding as I hit send. As the hours crawled by, I fought the urge to overthink everything. I wanted to go in with a level head, but the anxiety gnawed at me. What if she didn't say what I wanted to hear? What if she was just trying to manipulate me again? I didn't want to be the fool who fell for the same tricks twice. When 7 o'clock rolled around, I found myself pacing our living room, trying to prepare for the conversation. The door opened and Allison stepped inside, looking nervous but hopeful. I could see the bags under her eyes, a sign that she hadn't been sleeping well. Maybe she truly was remorseful. Maybe she would fight for us. "Jake," she began, her voice wavering, "thank you for agreeing to talk. I know things have been rough, and I want to come clean about everything." I crossed my arms, steeling myself for the words that were about to come. "Go ahead," I said, my tone flat. I realized that I wasn't just running away from you, I was running away from myself. I was feeling lost, and instead of talking to you about it, I sought comfort in the wrong place. She confessed, her eyes glistening with tears. "I can't express how sorry I am for what I did. I've ended things with Mark, and I want to rebuild our relationship from the ground up." I listened, trying to gauge the sincerity in her voice. "You say you've ended it, but how do I know this isn't just another lie?" I challenged, keeping my defenses up. "I know I've broken your trust, and I don't expect you to forgive me overnight. But I want to prove to you that I'm committed to being better. I've already started seeing a therapist to work through my issues," she said, her sincerity evident in her eyes. My heart softened a little. I wanted to believe her, but the pain of betrayal was still fresh. "How do I know this is real? How do I know you won't just turn around and go back to him?" I pressed. "Because I love you, Jake. I've always loved you, and I can't imagine my life without you. I made a terrible mistake, and I want to spend the rest of my life making it right," she said, her voice breaking. I felt tears welling in my own eyes as I struggled to process her words. My heart wanted to believe her, but my mind screamed caution. "It's going to take time, Allison. You can't expect me to just trust you again." "This is going to be a long road," I warned, my voice trembling with emotion. "I understand. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Just give me a chance," she pleaded, taking a step closer, her gaze steady. At that moment, I felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps there was a path forward, but it was going to require both of us to work hard and commit to healing. "Okay," I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. "But know this, if I find out you've lied or gone back to him in any way, I'm done. I won't be a second choice." Allison nodded earnestly, relief washing over her face. "I promise, Jake, you won't regret this." As she embraced me, I felt the warmth of her body against mine, and for the first time in days, I allowed myself to hope. There was still so much uncertainty, but I realized that I wanted to fight for our marriage. I wanted to believe that we could rebuild something more solid than before. but in the back of my mind, Mark was still a looming threat. I knew I had to proceed with my plan to expose him. My personal life was one thing, but my professional life was another. I was determined to take control of the company, and in doing so, I could ensure that I would never have to worry about Mark's influence over Allison ever again. As the days turned into weeks, I continued to gather evidence against Mark while working on my relationship with Allison. We attended couples therapy, and I watched as she made a genuine effort to communicate and be vulnerable. It was a slow process, but each small victory felt like a step toward healing. But the moment of truth was fast approaching. With Lisa's help, we had compiled a solid case against Mark and were ready to present our findings to my father. I could feel the tension building, and I knew this meeting would change everything. It would either solidify my position within the company or hand Mark the chance to retaliate. It was time to take the final step in my plan for revenge. I was determined to not only reclaim my power, but to ensure that my marriage was no longer overshadowed by the shadow of betrayal. I had worked too hard to let Mark ruin my life, and I was ready to take the reins for my future. The day of the meeting with my father arrived, and the gravity of the situation weighed on my shoulders. I had gathered all the evidence against Mark, and every detail I had uncovered felt like a double-edged sword. Presenting this information would not only expose Mark's unethical behavior, but could also obliterate any chance of reconciliation between him and Allison. I needed to remain focused. I couldn't allow emotions to cloud my judgment. As I walked into the conference room, my heart raced with a mix of anxiety and determination. My father was already seated at the head of the table, a serious expression on his face. He could sense the tension in the air, and I knew he was ready for whatever I had to say. Lisa was there too, positioned to support me with the evidence we had compiled. "Jake, what's going on?" my father asked, his brows furrowing in concern. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "Dad, I need to talk to you about Mark and the direction of the company," I began, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. "I've been hearing some troubling things about Mark's management style and certain dealings that don't sit right with me. I've done some digging and I have evidence to back it up." I gestured to the folder in front of me, filled with documents, emails, and recordings that painted a damning picture of Mark's actions. "What do you mean?" my father asked, looking increasingly concerned. I opened the folder and began to present the evidence. As I laid out the details, I could see my father's expression shift from curiosity to disbelief, and then, finally, to anger. "I can't believe this. How could I have let this happen?" "Under my watch?" he asked, shaking his head in disappointment. "Dad, this is exactly why I'm bringing it to you. I want to protect the company you've built. Mark has been mismanaging funds, inflating sales numbers, and engaging in unethical practices that could jeopardize our reputation," I explained, feeling a surge of confidence with every word. As I went through the evidence, I noticed Lisa chiming in, supporting my claims with additional insights she had gathered. Together, we painted a picture of Mark as someone who had betrayed the trust of the entire company. My father listened intently, his expression hardening as the truth unfolded. When I finished, there was a heavy silence in the room. Finally, my father looked at me with a mix of pride and concern. "Jake, I had no idea. I trusted Mark, and this puts us all in a precarious position. We can't let this slide," he said, his voice firm. "Exactly. We need to take action before it's too late. I want to step up and take on a more significant role in the company. I believe I can help right the ship and lead us into the future, but we need to deal with Mark first," I proposed, feeling the weight of my father's gaze upon me. After a long pause, my father nodded, a look of resolve crossing his features. "I trust your judgment, Jake. Let's handle this. We'll schedule a meeting with legal to discuss how we can proceed with terminating Mark's contract and addressing his actions." A wave of relief washed over me. I had done it. I was taking control of my life, both personally and professionally. We had a plan, and I felt a renewed sense of purpose. As I left the meeting, I couldn't shake the feeling of exhilaration. I had taken charge of my destiny, but there was still one last conversation I needed to have, one that would determine the future of my marriage. Later that evening, I sat down with Allison at our kitchen table. She looked up at me, her expression a mix of apprehension and hope. "How did it go?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "It went well. I presented the evidence against Mark, and my father is taking it seriously. We're moving forward to address the issues," I replied, watching her face light up with relief. "That's amazing, I knew you could do it," she exclaimed, a genuine smile crossing her lips, but I could see the worry behind her eyes. "Yeah, but there's something else we need to discuss," I said, taking a deep breath. "This isn't just about the company, we need to talk about us." Her expression shifted and I could see the tension returning. "I know I've made mistakes, Jake. I'm committed to making it right. I just need you to trust me again," she said, her voice trembling. I held her gaze, searching for that flicker of the woman I fell in love with. "Allison, I'm willing to try, but it's going to take time. I need to see consistent effort on your part. I need you to be open and honest with me, no more secrets." She nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. "I promise, Jake. I'll do whatever it takes to prove to you that I'm serious about us. I want to rebuild our life together." In that moment, I felt a sense of hope blossom within me. It wouldn't be easy, and there would be ups and downs. But I was willing to fight for what we had. I knew that rebuilding our trust and love would take time and effort from both of us. As I held her close, I realized that this journey was about more than just revenge or reclaiming my power. It was about forgiveness and growth. I wanted to emerge from this experience stronger, not just for myself but for our marriage. We would face the challenges ahead together, stronger than we were before. In the end, I learned that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing to move forward with the desire to heal, and sometimes the hardest battles lead to the greatest victories. And as I looked into Allison's eyes, I saw the possibility of a new beginning, reminding me that even from the ashes of betrayal, we could rise again.